Welcome to this explainer. Okay, imagine for a second that your body isn't just some biological machine, but a highly structured, honestly sometimes dramatic family business. Every organ has a specific role, every chemical is an urgent inner office memo, and there is a very strict hierarchy, keeping the whole operation from just totally falling apart. Today, we're cracking the code on the family command center, the endocrine system. Have you ever actually wondered what exactly controls your 24-hour sleep cycle? Or what triggers those sudden growth spurts? Or why your heart absolutely pounds and your palms sweat when you're dropping down a massive hill on a roller coaster? Well, it's not magic, right? It's a highly coordinated whisper network of totally unseen chemicals that dictate our daily experiences. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. 1. The body's chemical messengers. 2. The command center. 3. Metabolism and calcium regulators. 4. Stress, sugar, and immunity. 5. Reproduction and other organs. And 6. How hormones actually work. Section 1. The body's chemical messengers. Let's start by figuring out who the messengers are and where they come from. So basically, our body has 3 main types of factories, or glands. First, exocrine glands. These are the ones with tiny ducts or tubes. Think of your sweat or salivary glands physically pouring their secretions out through specific little channels. Then we have heterocrine glands, which kind of play both sides of the fence, like the pancreas. But our main focus today, the endocrine glands. These are completely ductless. They pour their secretions directly into the bloodstream. And what are those secret secretions? Hormones. Hormones are non-nutrient chemical messengers that act in trace amounts. They're literally the ultimate inner office memos of the body, traveling all the way through the blood to deliver specific, targeted instructions to distant organs. Moving right along to Section 2, the command center. We're heading straight to the top of the hierarchy, right up into the brain. Meet the hypothalamus. In our family business analogy, think of the hypothalamus as the dadaji, the strict grandfather of all the glands. Derived from the outer germ layer, the ectoderm, this tiny structure sits right in your brain and basically dictates all the orders. Just like a strict grandfather who tells you exactly when you can leave the house and exactly when you need to be back, the hypothalamus controls the whole body by releasing either stimulating hormones, telling other glands, hey, get to work, or inhibiting hormones, telling them to shut down production immediately. Now, what's really interesting about this is how Dadaji manages his 2 children, the pituitary gland's 2 lobes. On the left, we have the anterior pituitary. Let's call this the favorite hardworking child. It produces a whopping 75% of the gland's hormones, things like growth hormone and thyroid-stimulating hormone. And it communicates with the hypothalamus through a really complex portal vein system. But on the right, well, that's the posterior pituitary, the dependent child. It actually has absolutely no hormones of its own. No way, right? It relies entirely on direct neural connections to just store and release Dadaji's hormones, specifically oxytocin, the birth hormone, and ADH, which manages water retention. All right, Section 3, metabolism and calcium regulators. Let's travel down the neck and look at how we burn energy and build bones. So, right at the front of your windpipe sits the thyroid. It's this beautiful butterfly-shaped gland, and its main gig is regulating your basal metabolic rate, essentially how fast you burn calories. But to do this, it desperately needs iodine to make its key hormones, T3 and T4. That is exactly why we eat iodized salt, because if your body lacks iodine, the hypothalamus just keeps frantically yelling at the thyroid to make hormones, but it literally can't. Thanks to that constant overstimulation, the gland actually swells up, causing a visible condition called goiter. And even more seriously, if a mother lacks iodine during pregnancy, it can lead to cretinism in the child, which causes stunted growth and a lower IQ. Now, right behind that thyroid are 4 tiny little dots called the parathyroid glands. Together with the thyroid, they play this beautiful, constant tug of war with your blood calcium levels. Look at the balance here. The thyroid releases calcitonin, which steps in to decrease calcium in the blood when it gets too high. But on the flip side, the parathyroid releases parathyroid hormone, or PTH, which jumps in to increase calcium levels when they drop too low. It's a totally perfect feedback loop, keeping your body in harmony. Moving to Section 4, stress, sugar, and immunity. Let's head further down to the midsection for the high-stress, heavy-lifting departments. Sitting right on top of your kidneys like little caps are the adrenal glands. Remember that roller coaster rush we talked about earlier? When you feel that intense wave of fear, your heart pounding out of your chest, that's the inner part of this gland, the adrenal medulla, releasing adrenaline to trigger the 3F response: fight, flight, or fear. But wait, the adrenal gland actually has 2 distinct parts. The outer layer, the cortex, releases corticoids. These are absolutely crucial for managing your long-term stress, keeping inflammation down, and regulating your overall immunity and blood volume. And this brilliantly illustrates the delicate balancing act of another major player, the pancreas. So when you eat those late-night sweets, your blood gets flooded with sugar, right? The beta cells of the pancreas immediately release insulin, which frantically tries to lower that blood sugar by forcing your liver and fat cells to absorb the excess glucose. Yes, literally storing it as fat. On the flip side, if you're fasting and your body desperately needs energy, the alpha cells release glucagon, which raises your blood sugar by breaking down those stored reserves. Section 5. Reproduction and other organs. Let's talk about the highly specialized workers in the family business. Now, the reproductive organs, or gonads, don't just go rogue and act on their own. They actually take their orders directly from the pituitary gland, the Papa G of the family, via specific hormones like FSH and LH. In males, the testes respond to these signals by producing testosterone, which drives male characteristics and kicks off the formation of sperm. In females, the ovaries produce estrogen and progesterone. These hormones are basically the orchestrators for female traits, managing the development of follicles, and they are absolutely vital for maintaining the uterine lining during pregnancy. But hey, the family business doesn't stop there. The pineal gland deep in your brain secretes melatonin. That's the one regulating your 24-hour sleep cycle. Then there's the thymus, sitting right behind your chest bone. It builds your immunity by training T cells. But get this, it actually shrinks as we get older, which is a big reason why elderly individuals often have weaker immune systems. And it gets crazier. Even organs you'd never expect are moonlighting as hormone producers. Your heart secretes ANF to lower blood pressure, your kidneys release erythropoietin to form red blood cells, and your GI tract releases hormones like gastrin and secretin just to manage your digestive juices. The whole body is in on it. Finally, Section 6, how hormones actually work. Let's zoom way in to see this buildup at the microscopic cellular level. Because, well, hormones aren't all built the same way. They basically fall into 4 distinct chemical families. We've got peptides and proteins, which are chains of amino acids, think insulin or glucagon. We have amines, which come from single amino acids, like adrenaline and melatonin. We have iodinated hormones, like the ones we saw from the thyroid. And finally, steroids, which are lipid or fat-based, like corticoids, testosterone, and estrogen. And here's why that matters. A hormone's chemical makeup entirely dictates exactly how it's allowed to enter a cell. So the crucial point here is the difference between knocking politely on the front door versus just walking straight into the control room. Protein hormones are lipid insoluble. They literally cannot pass through the fatty wall of a cell. No way. So they bind to membrane-bound receptors on the outside surface, kind of like ringing a doorbell. That triggers secondary messengers like CAMP inside the cell to do the actual work. But steroid and iodinated hormones, they're lipid soluble. They don't need to knock. They slip right through the cell membrane, travel all the way into the nucleus, bind to nuclear receptors, and directly alter your DNA and protein synthesis themselves. It's honestly a perfectly choreographed symphony of chemicals. From the strict data G in your brain to the microscopic receptors on literally every cell in your body, everything is beautifully connected. So the next time you feel an intense rush of fear, a sudden wave of sleepiness, or a massive spike in energy after a meal, take a moment and ask yourself, which member of your body's family business is pulling the microscopic strings right now? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope this helped you decode your own physiological command center. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you in the next one.